What do you call a car so beautiful that it made Enzo Ferrari himself publicly admit his rival had created perfection? The answer changed automotive history forever. In 1961, a car appeared at the Geneva Motor Show that didn't just turn heads. It stopped time. Journalists abandoned other booths. Photographers fought for angles. And somewhere in the crowd, representatives from Ferrari stood in stunned silence. Because what they witnessed wasn't just another sports car. It was automotive poetry written in aluminum and steel. This is the story of the Jaguar E-Type, the car that even its greatest rival called the most beautiful car ever made. Enzo Ferrari, the man who built a legend on Italian passion and racing pedigree, makes a statement that shocks the automotive world. La macchina più bella del mondo, the most beautiful car in the world. But he wasn't talking about a Ferrari. He was talking about a British car that had just made every Italian exotic look ordinary. The Ferrari 250 GT was selling for the equivalent of $200,000 in today's money. The E-Type? It delivered the same 150 miles per hour performance for a third of the price. But more than that, it looked like it had been carved by angels. This wasn't just automotive rivalry. This was recognition of perfection from the master himself. March 15, 1961, Geneva Motor Show. Jaguar's stand was supposed to showcase their sedan lineup. Instead, they were about to detonate a bomb that would reshape the sports car world forever. When the covers came off, the room fell silent. Here was a car that looked like it had time-traveled from the future. The E-Type's endless hood, the way it seemed to be moving even while standing still, it was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Norman Dewis, Jaguar's legendary test driver, had driven through the night from Coventry to Geneva at an average speed of over 100 miles per hour. He arrived just as the show opened, stepped out of what would become the most famous sports car in history, and casually announced, "I've just driven the future." But this wasn't just about looks. Malcolm Sayer, the E-Type's designer, wasn't a car designer at all. He was an aerodynamicist who had worked on aircraft. Every curve, every line had been mathematically calculated for speed. This car was literally shaped by science. Here's what nobody knew. The E-Type was essentially a fighter jet without wings. Malcolm Sayer used the same mathematical principles he'd learned designing aircraft to create what was effectively a ground-based missile. Look at that nose. It's not just beautiful, it's a masterpiece of aerodynamics. The air flows over it like water over a stone. Long hood isn't just for show. It's housing a 3.8-liter straight-six engine that was essentially a race motor detuned for the street. But the real genius was in the structure. The E-Type pioneered the monocoque construction. The entire front end was a stressed member of the chassis. This wasn't just advanced, it was revolutionary. Modern supercars still use variations of Sayer's innovations. The independent rear suspension, the rack and pinion steering, the four-wheel disc brakes, technologies that wouldn't become standard until decades later. The E-Type wasn't just ahead of its time, it was from a different dimension. 150 miles per hour. In 1961, those were science fiction numbers. The only cars that could touch that speed cost fortunes and were temperamental beasts. The E-Type made it look easy. Road and Track magazine called it undoubtedly the greatest sports car value in the world. Car and Driver said it was the most beautiful production car ever built. But the numbers told the real story. 0 to 60 in under 7 seconds when most family cars took twice that long. And it wasn't just fast in a straight line. At Le Mans, private E-Type entries were embarrassing factory race teams. This was a car you could drive to the track, race, and drive home. Try that with a Ferrari of the era. For the price of one Ferrari 250 GT, you could buy an E-Type and still have enough left over for a house. It was automotive democratization at its most elegant. Walk through any car show today, and you'll see the E-Type's DNA everywhere. That long hood, those flowing lines, the way modern designers still chase that perfect balance between aggression and elegance. It all started here. Aston Martin DB11, E-Type influence. Jaguar F-Type, literally named as a tribute. Even exotic manufacturers like Pagani and Koenigsegg admit they're chasing the aesthetic perfection Sayer achieved 6 decades ago. Steve McQueen owned one. George Best had one. Frank Sinatra drove one. But more importantly, regular people could afford one. This wasn't just a rich man's toy. It was accessible beauty. Today, a good E-Type can cost more than a new supercar. The irony? The very accessibility that made it special has made it precious. We've come full circle. Here's the tragic truth. We will never see another E-Type. Not because we can't build beautiful cars, we can, but because the world that created the E-Type no longer exists. Modern safety regulations mean those flowing lines are impossible. Pedestrian impact standards killed the long hood. Emission requirements ended the simple, powerful engines. The E-Type wasn't just designed in a different era, it was designed for a different world. When production ended in 1975, it marked the end of an era. Cars could still be fast, they could still be beautiful, but they could never again be as pure, as uncompromised, as perfect as the E-Type. Malcolm Sayer died in 1970, never seeing his masterpiece's full impact. But his creation lives on, not just in museums and private collections, but in every sports car designer who still dreams of achieving what he accomplished with slide rules and genius. So when Enzo Ferrari called the E-Type the most beautiful car ever made, he wasn't just praising a rival, he was acknowledging something eternal. True beauty doesn't age, doesn't become outdated, doesn't compromise. The Jaguar E-Type didn't just change automotive history, it perfected it. And sometimes, perfection only comes once. What do you think? Have we ever seen a more perfect car? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more automotive legends.